Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1772 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent... Are you okay over there, Ed Keenan?
Oh, my goodness. The smart water's attacking me.
You choking on my program? My goodness. In the middle of my Great Lakes showdown? Jeez.
Proceed.
Well, they're a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Blue Sky Agency, the official distributor of Silent's quiet, comfortable, and customizable office pods. Create sanctuary within your workspace. Nick Iones, he's back, everybody. The host of Building Toronto's Skyline and Building Success. 2 podcasts you ought to listen to. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. And Ridley Funeral Home. Pillars of the community since 1921. Today, returning for his quarterly appearance on Toronto Mic'd, it's Mr. Edward Keenan from the Toronto Star.
Woo, woo.
When you're this big, they call you Mr.
That's right.
The name, again, before I press record, I was trying to come up with the lead singer of the Doughboys, who married the second Mrs. Draper from Mad Men, and it's thanks to the VP of Sales at live.torontomic.com. I see it's John Kastner.
John Kastner. Okay,
John
there
Kastner, lead singer and founder of the Doughboys. Do you remember Doughboys?
And yeah, I do. And then that came up because then he was in another band.
Oh, All Systems Go. And I saw All Systems Go at Molson Park in Barrie in 1998 on the small stage, because on the big stage I was there to see a little band called Pearl Jam.
Ah, okay, there you go. I did see Pearl Jam at Molson Park in Barrie, but as part of the Lollapalooza 92 lineup.
You were ahead of me there. I heard that. Do you remember that lineup?
Yeah,
I've seen the posters and it was legendary.
So when we bought the tickets, we thought we were going to see a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert. And a couple of my friends who were cool knew that Lollapalooza was kind of a thing, because Jane's Addiction, who were
Perry Farrell,
the darlings of CFNY throughout that era, had headlined the tour and founded it the year before at CNE. But like this was now a full on thing. But it was like Red Hot Chili Peppers were there, and then I think Ice Cube was there that year, who we also loved, and then it was like also Jesus and Mary Chain. But then by the time we went there, Ministry, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, they had blown up.
Yeah,
so like by the time between
grunge breaks,
between the time we bought the tickets and the time we went to the show, Soundgarden and Pearl Jam had become 2 of the biggest bands in the world, right? And so I mean, and that was just a massive show. That was the first time I ever crowd surfed or found myself in a mosh pit.
Yeah,
and yeah, it was a great time. So very, very memorable. And I went to a couple other Lollapaloozas after that, also at Molson Park, and lots of great bills.
Did you go to any?
Nothing like that. Eddie Vedder also, like he used to do.
Yeah.
Because actually, I said by the time we went to the show, Pearl Jam had blown up to become the biggest band in the world, but it's like I basically they had one radio hit at the time that was kind of big, but then they put on such a show, and it was like such a grunge vibe at the time. But also Eddie Vedder climbed the rigging, right? Like he climbed the light rigging up, and what appeared to be, now maybe it was only like 30, 40 feet up, but it appeared to be like hundreds and hundreds of feet up in the air, and then dove like into the mosh pit from a scarily high level, and it was just like, what the hell, this guy. So
wow, what a force.
Hell of a show.
When you talk about one radio hit, are you talking about Even Flow or Alive?
It must have been Even Flow was their first one, right?
I remember them being like, I think it was Even Flow, then Alive, but those 2 were the big radio hits.
Alive and Jeremy.
Well, Jeremy had the big video, which came a little later.
But that's, I mean, if you go back to 10, those were the 3 giant singles.
But singles, yes. But
Yeah.
the big radio song, in addition to those 3, was Black.
Black, yeah, as well.
Wasn't released
Yeah.
as a single, but was played all the time on CFNY, for example.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, man, I'm enjoying the Pearl Jam talk. I just had yesterday, Bob Willett was here. He might be the biggest Pearl Jam fan I know. And we were talking about a cover band I saw. I don't know, was that the Kingsway?
Stone Temple Pilots?
No, it was.
Oh, no, sorry.
You know what though? Plush. I know. So I was, we're similar vintage. So when Plush was released as a single, all my friends were joking about the new Pearl Jam single, but I went out and bought Core, and I'm just here to say that they stand alone. They're a great band too.
No,
Stone
and
Temple
they have a
Pilots.
lot of other good stuff, but it was funny because I was in university at the time, and my closest friend, Leanne, had her friend, she can't remember her name, but was visiting from like Los Angeles, where she was a model.
What?
And then she was like, have you guys heard of STP, this new band, Stone Temple Pilots? And we said, no, we've never heard of them yet. And she said, you're going to soon, but when you turn on the radio and you think you're hearing the new Pearl Jam single,
Right.
that will be Stone Temple
that's
Pilots.
Plush.
And that exactly happened. It was like a week later, I heard what appeared to be a new Pearl Jam song, and the dogs begin to smell her.
What a Pearl Jam song, right?
and-
Plush, great single.
And it was indeed Stone Temple Pilots. So
Wow. So I saw, it's funny you mentioned you were going to see a Red Hot Chili Peppers show and it turned into a Pearl Jam Soundgarden thing, because I actually bought tickets to see Red Hot Chili Peppers just so I could see the opening band, Stone Temple Pilots.
There
that
you
was
go.
at the amphitheater.
Yeah.
So, okay. And also, I once bought tickets to see Linkin Park. I want to say Downsview Park. It was so Linkin Park at Downsview Park, and to see the opener, Stone Temple Pilots. So I'm a big STP head here, Ed Keenan.
okay, there you go. I didn't know
90s rock with Ed Keenan. You and I should start a 90s rock. Rock and rap. We could talk about Ice Cube and
Yeah, it could be just 90s
Body
stuff.
Count, Ice-T. Okay, so how are you doing otherwise, Ed Keenan?
I'm doing pretty good. We're in the overlap between baseball and hockey season, both in my youth coaching, cheering facilities and in professional, so that's good. I'm good in general. It's a very warm fall.
It's been wonderful.
So far.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
very cyclable September as it typically is, and October's been pretty good so far too.
Yeah, the couple days of it we've had so far.
It's early, as Mike
far, so
Wilner would
good.
say. It's early.
Yeah, but also we got October baseball this year.
Yeah, you excited? So who do you
I
want to play,
am.
the Red Sox or the Yankees?
Yeah.
You don't want to pick your poison?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's dangerous to pick. I mean, not that I'm going to be bullborn material for any of them. Like, it's not like some member of the Red Sox pitching staff is going to say he said we are weak. Let's go show him. But
Right.
But at the same
Pin
time,
that
just
into the
in terms
bulletin.
of like not wanting to jinx things, I feel like it's dangerous to pick. But I guess the Red Sox. I feel like the Yankees finished the year so strong.
Absolutely.
And Aaron Judge has so much to prove, and but so I maybe it's the Red Sox win what's almost a coin flip for me in terms of what I prefer, but I'm so excited about it.
And that
Looking
game
forward to
3 is tonight, right?
Yeah.
Yankees and Red Sox.
Yeah.
I watched quite a bit of the first 2 games of Yankees and Red Sox. I remember it all came back to me. Oh yeah, I love playoff baseball. Like that regular season's way too long, man. Like I know the diehards can glue in for 162, but this year I decided, okay, the stakes need to be higher for me to devote my time to this. But we're there now. I love playoff baseball.
It's my daughter and I, because my daughter, has played baseball for years. She's 16 now. But what she was talking about, she will never watch regular season baseball. Like if it's, and I barely watch. Like I'll just turn on the game and have it in the background. But we were talking about it, and I said, for the people who love it as a spectator sport, because she loves playing it, but she doesn't really like watching it until the playoffs. And I said, for the people who love it, the length of the season and the low stakes through the season are kind of part of it. It's just like summertime and it's like easy breezy. Oh, and there's a fly ball, but you can read a book or whatever while you're doing it. Like work on your car or, whatever you want to do. Sit on the dock and drink a beer.
Right.
It's just on in the background. And then in the playoffs, the stakes, like it's still such a slow paced game, except that it seems like every pitch has like so much weight on it. Like the tension just builds and builds because the magic of the game is that nothing happens until everything happens.
And there's a great sense of anticipation. Like you got maybe
Mm-hmm.
runners on the corner. Or like that game one when the Yankees loaded the bases.
Oh my!
And it was nobody out.
Yeah,
and they were down by a
bases
run.
loaded, nobody out.
And it's like, okay, and then Chapman ended
then
up getting out of
Chapman
it.
shut him
But
down.
my goodness, like it's like playoff baseball. The stakes are finally high. Let's go. Hey, are you aware of the Professional Women's Baseball League that launches next year?
Yes, I am. One of the co-founders, as you know, is the owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs Baseball Club. The other co-founder is Justine Siegel, the founder of Baseball for All, which is an organization that my girls have played in tournaments with for 10 years now, or 8 years. And so I'm not good friends with Justine Siegel, but I've met her a bunch of times and been in touch with her and have participated in her events, and I'm really excited for that. And actually, one of our friends from Washington, D.C. is going to be drafted into that league. She went to the open tryouts.
Which was at National Stadium there in Washington.
So Paloma Bonache, she was a mentor to my younger daughters when she played on the DC Force girls baseball team, and my daughters also played in that organization on younger teams, and they would practice together every Sunday, and Paloma was there. She helped coach one of my youngest daughter's team at a couple tournaments, and then she went off to play baseball in college with men for a year or two in California, and now she's going to be a professional baseball player. So,
well, in previous visits, and I should point out to the listenership, Ed Keenan of the Toronto Star visits once every quarter, and we never talk about it. Like it's a recurring calendar event, first Thursday of every quarter at 2 p.m. I know you're going to be here, but we never have that moment of like, we still on for 2 o'clock or just checking in.
Once or twice. The only time we
yeah.
talk about it beforehand is when we're going to postpone it or cancel it,
Yeah.
right? It's like when I was out of town or whatever, then but otherwise, like I got in my car here today and was just on faith that you also got the calendar notification. So.
I knew you'd be here, and there you are, and I'm glad you're here. But I was going to just say, we've talked in the past about Ayami Sato, who Keith Stein, who I found out speaks Japanese because he worked for Toyota Canada, and he learned Japanese. Well, he was a lawyer for that company. Hope I have the right company. But anyway, he knows Japanese, and he recruited Ayami Sato to come play for the Toronto Maple Leafs this summer, and I saw her quite a bit, spent some time with Ayami Sato, and I think she's... I think the whole method to the madness there is that she's going to be a big deal when the women have their own league next year. So it's all kind of part and parcel.
I was wondering, I mean, because there was obviously... I mean, he recruited her as a baseball player, but I think for her and for the team, for the Toronto Maple Leafs and him, it was partly like she's an ambassador and a public relations person.
It got a lot of
press. And so she played, but I think it's a bigger play for both of them when they have
next
the
year
women's league.
Yeah, and I know she was in Washington for those tryouts,
Yeah.
and of course she'll be a big part of that. So stay tuned, a league of their own, if you will. The first time since World War II, I believe, that there'll be a professional women's baseball league in North America. No team in Toronto, though, because we're going to get to Toronto here.
Not yet. I guess the border.
Where would they play? I think that I asked Keith about this, but he's like, where would... I guess you don't have... I think this league is structured where you don't have to play home games. Like they'll all play in like Arizona, for example. Like I think that's the way this league is going to go.
Some of the league of their own stuff back then too. They had that where, but so
like you could have a Toronto franchise that plays their games
but they're
in
not
Arizona.
They're not going to be traveling as much.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like, and in fact, I don't know if this is out of school chatter.
We should
I've had many
talk
a
to
private
him.
chat with Keith.
Yeah.
But I think they're talking about maybe this new league might launch after next year's World Series. And due to climate, they'll want to play all the games somewhere warm, probably
Arizona or Florida, right?
So, I mean, in theory, you don't need a place to play. Like, there really is nothing between the dome. Like, what's the next?
Yeah.
There's nothing in the city where a baseball team could play lower attendance in the dome.
I do not doubt that he has a plan.
Okay. He's got a plan.
But, I mean, if you want, and I'm looking at the PWHL as an example, or you know, any other kinds of things. But it's like the thing about naming the teams for cities is that, like, for the Toronto Maple Leafs now, they could go and play all their home games in like Iowa, and I would basically nothing would change for me because I'm not the kind of high roller who actually is going to
Right.
Leafs games.
And you're talking about the hockey
like,
team.
Like the Toronto Maple Leafs are a television show I watch.
Right.
And then obsess over. Like I read all the
Well,
stuff.
we watched
and
the
I
playoff
whatever,
games
and
from Edmonton.
But
right?
it's like I don't ever
Right.
go somewhere where the Leafs are there. But for a smaller startup team, it does feel to me like the fans being able to go and watch them is a big part of your revenue and your relationship building with the team. Because like if they just name a team for Toronto and they play all their games in Arizona and none of the players ever even visit Toronto, I mean, I don't know. Like I guess I could hop on that. It does seem weird though.
Well, the reason I think that is because the first sports league that Keith Stein launched was a pro padel league. Padel is a paddle sport that most Canadians have never heard of. But I used to be involved in their podcast, the Pro Padel League podcast. So I know a little bit. But they did that where they had franchises, like a New York franchise, and they had like a Boston. They had these different franchises, but they played all their games in Florida. Like all of that. So I think that's like a model that Keith has experience with. And I could see that being the model deployed for at least the first season of the Women's Professional League, where all the games happen in
I guess
Arizona.
The Olympics work like that, where there's a Team Canada, but none of the games are in Canada. They're all over in wherever they're hosting the Olympics. But those players come from Canada. Like it does seem like there should be some connection to the city.
Well,
that the
Sato
team's
hopefully
named
would
after.
play for. Well, there is no Toronto franchise, so this is all moot. But when I have more info, Keith Stein promises he'll give me the exclusive. Maybe I'll get it like an hour before the Toronto Star.
They're gonna have, or they have an original six cities, right?
Right.
And I think, see, what I had heard is that they were gonna keep it to the Northeast. but if they're playing all their games in Arizona, that's not.
Well, I think it might depend. Again, we'll move back to Toronto stuff in a moment. But I think it might depend on when they launch this. Like, I don't think they want to have their league playing games at the same time as MLB. Like, I think they'd rather get everyone excited about the World Series and MLB production, and then when that ends, so like, I don't know, November or whatever, launch the Women's League, and they need to play somewhere,
right?
Either in a dome or warm climate.
At the same time, there is a professional women's softball league starting up for the first time, and that got a ton of funding from Major League Baseball. It's kind of like
I see.
The way sort of the NBA and has a WNBA, and I think they're launching like soon, but and I know a lot of people in the women's baseball community were kind of disappointed because like a lot of them have played softball, a lot of them have friends who play softball. They're excited that there's going to be a professional women's softball league, but that the announcement by Major League Baseball, like, yeah, we're going to be partners in starting a professional softball league, came, just a few weeks after after this. But I think I actually know a catcher who's going to go and play in that league, and I think she's going down in January to play for a team in Mexico City or something. So if they're playing in the winter, which again, I should double check this before I just spout right off.
Well, let's say that the caveat is we actually don't know what we're talking about. Yeah. We're speculating.
But if they're going to play a winter-spring season in southern cities, again, I guess the idea would be not to compete with Major League Baseball's schedule.
Right. So stay tuned. I'll get Keith Stein. He's a good friend of the program. He loves Toronto Mike. He's listening to us right now, and I can't wait for the Maple Leafs season to start up again next summer so I can talk about Toronto Maple Leafs baseball at Christie Pitts. How are things at the Toronto Star, Ed Keenan?
Things are good at the Toronto Star. Yeah, I mean, there's always lots of news. The year started off great because we had all these elections and, great in the news sense, in that like Trump was threatening to take over the country and all of that. That's terrible. It is always the standing rule of journalism is like terrible for the world, great for our business.
Right.
But things remain good at the Toronto Star. I think business is better than it has been in a long time. There's sort of good morale there. We've been staffing up a little bit, yeah.
That's good. No, glad to hear it. Any updates on the world of podcasting as it pertains to the Toronto Star?
We talk about this
Can
every
I quote
time,
you on that?
and I feel like this is probably like the third.
But it's every 3 months.
We do this
I check
quarterly,
in.
and so this is probably like 6 months or so since, like, I've been in kind of a holding pattern for a year, but I did go back and do a bunch of podcasts in between. We went to sort of like a version of what the podcast I had been hosting, but not quite as often. And then over the summer, we kind of put that on hold again.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a vague idea that I'm going to go back to it. I mean, I hope we get it together soon, because it's like honestly, hosting radio is the most fun job I've ever had. I love being a columnist and a writer. That's like my main thing, and I probably would always do that no matter what I do. But like in terms of just like how enjoying spending a couple hours, like I love doing this. I love sitting in front of a microphone and talking. And so I'm hoping that, you know, the podcast department of the Star and I can come together on something that's going to work for us in the near future, because I got lots I'd like to say, and I like get to say it in the paper,
Of course.
but I think podcasting is a really fun way, and so I don't mean to sound really grumpy about it. It's just that there is honestly like more moving parts, especially when you're in a big company that has all of its strategies and stuff, than just me showing up and sitting in the podcast studio and talking. It's like there's a distribution strategy and a lineup, and there are other hosts and other podcasts they're working on, and they have producers and technical producers who, you know, have limited resources, and so it's at any given time they're figuring out strategically, like, what are we going to put our resources into over the next immediate future? What are growth opportunities for us? Like Kevin Donovan's investigative journalism, you know, murder mystery podcasts essentially have been like great to listen to. The readers love them. His work that has, you know, won him awards and changed things as a journalist is finding new audiences through podcasting. Like it's great, but it's that sort of like somebody working on that is not working on me sitting around shooting the shit and telling jokes, right?
Put me in, coach. Right? Put me in, coach.
Yeah.
I'll handle the Keenan stuff.
So we'll figure it out soon, but I don't want to I don't want to get anybody's expectations in it. At some point, I'll be back podcasting again, and it will no doubt be great. But I don't want you to expect it in the next week or two, because I honestly am not sure yet where we're. And I mean, I think as things come up, like I may do some one-offs or things here and there, very special episodes. But you know, over the next couple of months, I'd really like to get back to something regular, like weekly or more than weekly.
Well, you need to get back to a show, because I have a PSA for the listenership, and this is also for you, Edward Keenan. The next general municipal election in this city is Monday, October 26, 2026.
So we're not quite 1 year away.
We're close, though. Like, you need to have a show in place to cover and we're going to talk about this off the top, but it could be a rather interesting race.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we already have one declared candidate. And I don't know if you've read the newspaper, but you could probably just guess who it is.
Well, on that note, when we take our photo, before you continue on that line, when we take our photo by Toronto Tree after this episode, will you brandish a baseball bat? Like, I have a bat. I want you to hold a bat for the photo. I'm serious.
Well, if
bats are having a moment.
If you want me to, I can hold a bat, but I don't want that to be construed as an endorsement of any candidate in next year's election. And if anybody out there is in the dark, okay, so for...
Are you going to chew gum right now?
Everybody's expecting. Yeah.
But would you chew gum for a Toronto Star podcast?
I always do, because it's nicotine gum.
I need to know. Oh,
I see. So I have a strong...
Okay, you have
I was
medical
born in the wrong
reasons.
generation. Ladies and gentlemen, like, do you ever see, like... Talk Hard?
Yes,
yeah,
the Dewey
and,
Cox story.
And
is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm actually thinking of Bump Up the Volume.
Oh yeah,
Happy
Christian
Harry
Slater.
Hard On.
Yeah.
But then also like there was an old talk radio movie as well with a guy loosely based on Howard Stern.
Yes, that was a great movie.
It's like in my youth as a chain smoker, watching these movies where there are all these scenes of guys sitting there hosting radio. They've always got this cigarette burning,
Right.
and I have never in my life been in a radio studio where you're allowed to smoke. And yet, it still feels to me like the nicotine impulse comes on strong when I'm.
Are you still on the
I'm
darts?
riffing.
Like, do you still smoke cigarettes?
No, just I vape.
Okay.
Because it looks so much cooler, doesn't it? No, no.
Because you know,
you
only
feel like
every-
a Wally when you're vaping because you feel like you're like a 16-year-old, and yet it smells better and is
Right.
cheaper than smoking cigarettes.
And you get less nicotine.
And
in
there's
your body, right?
there's at least a coin flip chance that maybe it's mildly healthier. I don't know.
I think it's probably mildly healthier than cigarettes.
Yeah, and not at all healthier than not doing it at all.
That's correct.
But
So you'll be back here in January, which will be very cold, and we will be in the basement. But the episode after that, we could totally record in the backyard, and you could like smoke cigs through the whole thing.
well, if we're gonna do it in the backyard, I would have
Blow
to
it
get
into
the
my
actual
mics.
cigarettes. But before we got off on this tangent,
the
so we were
bat.
talking about the election. So
Right.
Olivia Chow, the current mayor of Toronto, has not confirmed that she's going to run again, but it's widely expected that she is. She hasn't given any sign that she's not running again. Her staff, when you talk to them, say, they haven't had a meeting about it and all of that. She's focused on the job she's doing, but they all expect that she's going to run again. Former mayor John Tory has been not very secretly or not even subtly. I think he's like trying to test the waters and get a sense of whether he should run again. I get the sense he wants to run again, and he is seeking for encouraging people to encourage him to run again. But first out of the gate, announcing that he's running is Batman Slugger Brad Bradford from Beaches, East York. The bald
That's very
batsman. He is in. He just he officially confirmed it yesterday.
Can I just go off on the fact he said he was coming out west to make an announcement on a podcast, and I was at the door waiting for him. He wasn't Toronto
Did you
mic'd.
get the caliper nut?
But he comes to the Toronto Mic'd listener experiences. He's been to several. He wanted to come to the most recent one at the GLB Brew Pub, which was just last week. But why did if he's going to make an announcement on a podcast in the West End of Toronto, how did I miss that? I know Brad's listening. So, Brad, what the hell?
Hey, we would have fired up the Toronto Star podcast studio for him if he had wanted to come down. If anybody wants to know, if anybody is in the dark about the Slugger and the Batman references, of course, he officially confirmed on a podcast yesterday that he was going to run. He's been widely expected to run for months and months, but it became a absolutely sure thing a couple weeks ago when he appeared on the cover of the Toronto Sun with a softball bat in his hands,
Right.
like a 1980s principal who's just fed up with the gang activity in his school. Not going to take it
Lean
anymore.
on Me or something.
And Joe Warmington had a big column about how Brad Bradford sleeps with a softball bat under his bed or in his room within reach in case he has to defend his family, like every dad in the city. And I don't doubt, actually, that a lot of dads and a lot of non-dads in the city do have baseball bats. Certainly, I have thought about how I would defend my family if there was a home invasion, and
Sure.
Baseball bats are a part of that. But there was a suggestion that somehow, things have gotten so bad in the city that for the first time in history, a man has had a violent fantasy of having to defend his family, and keeps this 15-year-old softball bat that he could probably hit a weak ground ball with near his
It's not
bed.
a Catelli bat, is it? Do you remember the Catelli
It was a
bat?
Louisville Slugger. It actually was a Louisville Slugger.
I think they've
And
got
so-
one of those upstairs.
Yeah, I've been to Louisville to the factory where they make those bats. I have coached baseball in Louisville. So,
Fun fact.
but
You're in the right place.
so I thought the implication there, knowing he was thinking about running for mayor, knowing that he's like other mayors promise to get tough on crime, but only Slugger Bradford is going to be out there actually bludgeoning criminals himself. And when that, before Doug Ford intervened to basically join the side of the criminals to basically vindicate their campaign of vandalism. I thought when Brad Bradford said the police are looking stupid and it's just getting ridiculous over this Parkside Drive camera.
Yeah.
I thought this is a job for the Batman. This is a job for Brad Bradford to just get out there and stake out the camera with his Louisville Slugger and get to be a hero. I mean, how would that be to kick off a campaign, especially if there was a podcaster from the West End on hand to document? So he missed the opportunity there.
What you're cooking there, buddy.
Missed the opportunity there. But, I mean, Rocco Rossi once ran for mayor against Rob Ford.
Yep.
And Rob Ford's whole thing was don't call 311, call me. On my personal cell phone, I get thousands of calls, but I spend all of my waking hours returning those calls to try and help you. And Rocco Rossi made a joke and said, like, we can't have a mayor by they turn on the Batman symbol, and Rob Ford sees it in the sky and goes, oh, okay, let me go mediate a landlord-tenant dispute in Scarborough, right? Like, you have to have a civil service and a system in place. It can't be like the bat signal. And in fact, now we could have a bat signal for a whole different thing. Like, who needs a police department? This is all I'm saying.
Okay, so lots to process there. But, so we have one. So, yes, we all saw this coming, that Brad Bradford would run for mayor. I thought he'd make the announcement on Toronto Mic'd. I'm not going to lie to you. He did not make the announcement on Toronto Mic'd. But okay, so he's running for mayor. We all knew that. I think we talked about this last time, but am I right? And I mean, it's just an opinion. You're an editorial list. You share lots of opinions in the Toronto Star. People should subscribe and read the Ed Keenan opinions on many interesting Toronto things. But if John Tory decides to run, isn't Brad Bradford DOA?
Okay, here I want to preface this by saying, and if people were like really close readers of my column, they'll know I've said a version of exactly what I'm about to say a couple different times. But like in 2003, Barbara Hall was supposed to win in a walk, so much so that other people shouldn't even bother running. And John Tory, the young firebrand backroom boy with no frontline political experience, was kind of the dark horse, the right-wing candidate who might have a puncher's chance to beat her. And people who you can look it up on Wikipedia, who wound up winning that race was David Miller, who in January of that year was polling at like 6% or 4% or something like that. He was like in 5th or 6th place behind John Nunziata, Tom Jacobek,
Right.
right? Then people might remember that in 2010, George Smitherman was such a powerhouse that nobody should bother to run against him. Adam Jambroni was maybe going to be the heir to David Miller's like progressive cred, but it was just like, well, he's going to get rolled over by George Smitherman anyway. When Adam Jambrone had to back out, Joe Pantalone ran, basically because like a no-hope campaign on behalf of the NDP against the Liberal monster was a good way to end his career and go into retirement. At least he could say he ran for mayor. And you may remember Rob Ford won that time. And then in 2014, you may remember that Jack Layton's widow, Olivia Chow, who was then a sitting federal member of parliament, was like called back to the city because only she and only she stood any chance of defeating Rob Ford, according to the polls. And then she came 3rd place behind Doug Ford, who came 2nd place, and John Tory. And so, like, you know, the dustbins of history are littered with ridiculously confident predictions of what's going to happen. So that said,
all that was like a caveat.
Here's what I think. If you look at the polling today, it's a really close race head-to-head between John Tory and Olivia Chow, which, depending on which poll you're reading, John Tory might have a slight advantage in right now, today, right? If the election were held today. Lots can happen in a campaign. Olivia Chow beats Brad Bradford head-to-head, but he maybe does surprisingly strong if it's just the two of them. maybe does surprisingly better than you would have thought in that head-to-head race, given that he finished 8th place last time.
Well,
right?
He barely beat Chris Sky.
Yeah, and he did not beat Chloe Brown,
No.
right? He did not beat Anthony Fury. He came in 8th place in what a lot of people thought was a 5-horse race, right? But if you poll the three of them, it looks like Olivia Chow more comfortably beats them both because, they share at least some of their base. Like,
Right.
And Brad Bradford in particular maybe steals some of the Ford Nation angry vote. Like, despite being a bike riding urban planner himself personally, he pushes a lot of the buttons that the sort of like right-wing edgelord meme factory, True North and Ontario Proud and all of that like to push, right? And maybe that's exactly the part of Toronto's voting coalition that thinks John Tory was a sheep in wolf's clothing, right? That he was like the driver's best friend when he was a talk radio host, but then he allowed himself to be, arm twisted into putting in those stupid bluer bike lanes that they all hate and putting in, like having to walk Toronto and like spending a lot of money on things that he's Joe Crussey's best friend, right? So, he says he's conservative and maybe he's not a raving socialist like Chow, but he's not eating red meat for the base. He's certainly not serving it to them, right? And so maybe Bradford steals some of that. And if Anthony Fury runs, he steals even more of that, right? But it's like, but Bradford looks at those same polls that show him in the 3rd place and says, okay, first of all, I'm not invisible in those polls. Like I'm in double digits, right? And John Tory is a known commodity, right? He served for mayor for 2 full terms. He's been in public life for decades. The public knows him. They mostly like him, but there's not a lot of people changing their mind about John Tory at this point. There's not a lot of people wondering, well, let's see what he says, because I don't know what that guy's all about, right? So he thinks, I haven't had a detailed conversation with him, but I did exchange some text messages about polls at one point with Brad Bradford, and I'm extrapolating a lot. So when I say he thinks this, let me say I think he thinks, and I'm mostly guessing, but educated guessing, that he looks at that and says, okay, if that's the result at the starting line, John Tory doesn't have a lot of place to grow, right? He doesn't have a lot of big pool of voters who've never heard of him. Meanwhile, I'm still relatively obscure. I ran for mayor, but I'm not. I didn't punch through to the podium in that race. It wasn't like people, and so I've gotten to be like this sort of leader of the opposition, but I still have, people can still learn about me. And there's a dynamic in some races in the past, and David Miller is the most famous one, but John Tory winning a 3-way race against Olivia Chow and Doug Ford in 2014 is another example where the person who starts in 3rd place, but who shares sort of some ideological ground with the person who's in 2nd place, like as the race goes on and it becomes obvious that Barbara Hall, or in that other case, like Doug Ford, like is not going to beat the person that their shared enemy, everybody herds over to the other one, right? So Brad Bradford thinks if we're months into the campaign and Olivia Chow's still leading John Tory, his people are going to stampede to me, right? Because they realize this horse can't run anymore. Who's this fresh face? And come over there. And I mean, it's not absolutely insane to think that could happen. I don't know.
But it would be unprecedented for somebody in this city to finish 8th and then the next election win.
I have to think so. I mean, Mark Maloney has written a book on Toronto mayors, and he may have more, like stretching back to the 1800s, might have a more detailed list of who finished.
So you got to go back to the 1800s
Although
to possibly
for a long time
find
there
an
weren't
example.
general elections. For a long time there were like the city council appointed the person, or stuff like that. So but I don't know like how many people have ever finished 8. Well, I mean, I guess in the last 30 or 40 years we often have 40 candidates, right? We just don't hear about most of them. But
Well, it would be a hell of a comeback. So if FOTM Brad Bradford ends up winning this election on October 26, 2026, without a doubt, this will be the greatest political comeback I believe that this city has ever seen.
Yeah,
It'll be quite something.
And I do think though that if I think Brad Bradford and his team have to also be thinking that planting their flag now, first of all, is like a warning to John Tory, right? Like, things get a lot easier for you if I don't run, but guess what? I'm running. I think you betrayed me last time when you endorsed Anna Bilau, which stole a big part of my vote at the last minute. I was your deputy mayor, or in your point person on housing right at the end of your term. I considered myself a protege of yours. I thought you were my political mentor. You stabbed me in the back, right? But also he thinks it's time for somebody else to have a turn, right? This guy's had a lot of turns. I'm younger, I'm fresher, but I'm not getting any younger, right? Like, and so it's time. So he's planting his flag as a warning to Tory, but also if Tory decides not to run, which he could,
Of course.
he's already out there now as the other one, right?
So essentially, what you're saying is the left will line up behind Olivia, but there's the centrists and the right need somebody.
Yeah, I think it would be very unlikely for any high-profile, established progressive to challenge Olivia Chow. We might see someone like Chloe Brown or somebody in that mold, like a complete outsider who says these leftists at City Hall aren't even really representing us. Could run a no-hope campaign. But I don't think there's going to be a serious heavyweight political challenger from Olivia Chow's left, which means it's easier for the right if they don't split the vote. But like John Tory won a three-way race against Olivia Chow in which he split the supposed right-wing vote with Doug Ford, right? Like it's not impossible for him to see, but the path does become a lot easier and clearer if there's not a bunch of other candidates muddying things up.
Let me ask you this, Ed Keenan from the Toronto Star. Am I nuts, or like if I went back 5 years, let's say 6 years ago, I felt like Brad Bradford was was left of center. Like it feels like he's been moving to the right side of the spectrum throughout the past, 5-6 years. Is that just me? Am I being fooled because he bikes?
Well, I think the fact that he was like a protege of Jennifer Keesmaat's and a city planner and worked at the city
and an
planning
avid cyclist
division, and that his mother is a liberal, provincial liberal, led a lot of people to think that, and especially because his main issue politically was housing, which is not really falling on the left-right spectrum. Like being a real advocate of opening up housing permissions and allowing a lot more housing to build is very developer friendly, but it's also like an affordability issue, right? And that resonates with the left too. So I don't think at first. I don't think he was particularly clear. Like, I don't think he was out banging his chest and declaring himself a socialist or anything like that. I think he always thought, I'm a reasonable centrist. But I think people thought the urbanist mold that he emerged from was generally associated with the left in Toronto. And I don't think he ever did much to discourage that kind of thinking early on, except accepting a role in John Tory's sort of cabinet at the time. But I don't think that he was doing a lot to create that impression other than being a big bike lane guy at the time.
I follow him on Strava.
But I do think, and I mean, I've sat and talked to him, and I don't want to be unduly like cynical or mean about him, but I do think that like he wants to be a player and he wants to go where the votes are, right? And in Toronto right now, and over the last little while, I think he's thought that the kind of populist right buttons that Doug Ford pushes and other people aren't properly pushed by John Tory or Mark Saunders or the sort of like more, and he thinks there's a lane for me to run in here, right? I can be this guy, and I don't think he disbelieves the stuff. I think he has a nose for publicity, which is something people would have said about Jack Layton, that like he'll see an opportunity to go out and hold a press conference and organize a thing and get things going.
Right.
So it is kind of opportunistic, but that's not the worst thing you can say about a politician. But it does seem to me like a lot of it seems almost like an AI could have come up with this as like the right-wing populist talking point, like, oh, somebody got killed, let's put out a video about that. There's a cravenness to it that it, and I told him this honestly, that's how it appeared to me. He says like he is entirely sincere that his last mayoral campaign was as good a representation of him as he's ever been able to put forward in his political life. That since then, as the guy with nothing to lose on city council, who's the self-appointed leader of the opposition, but who doesn't think he has any real good friends on city council, he's out there just shooting from the hip. I also think like a lot of his close friends are the people who run his campaign, right? Like these senior provincial conservatives, the Ontario Proud guys, and the like campaign masterminds from Doug Ford's team who helped run his campaign last time are like his friends. Like they live in the neighborhood and they go bike racing together and stuff, right?
Right.
And so, you know, like whether he's an ideological true believer, I think that's the environment he feels comfortable in. And so, but maybe when he was working at City Hall as a city planner, maybe earlier he was in a different environment. I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this. So he ran for mayor in a by-election. That means he did not have to give up his seat on council. So he was playing with house money when he ran, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't going to lose his... is it possible that it's been... And this is all pure speculation. When Brad returns to the program, I'll be asking him some of these tough questions, because that's what I do. Just ask the guys from Sloan, okay? I ask the tough questions around here. But is it possible that he's determined at this point, thanks to his veer to the right, he won't get reelected in his riding, which is a rather progressive riding, I'd say. So if he won't get reelected as city councillor, this is his best move, is to go for broke, because he's probably going to lose the 2026 councillor elect.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen polling or anything from the beaches, and so I don't know. But it is like very rare that a sitting councillor gets defeated.
Well, it happened here last time.
It does happen. Rare. It does happen, but it is rare. And I mean, I don't know that he necessarily be in trouble, and especially
just a sense I have from listeners.
But it is possible, and
city.
I think also equally possible is that he thinks even if he were to win again, another 4 years in opposition to Olivia Chow is not going to help him accomplish his goals. And by that, you could say political goals, like his own career advancement, but you could also say his political goals in terms of like accomplishing the things he thinks will make Toronto a better place. Like the reasons, the good reasons that people get into politics are they want to be able to do some good, and they think, let me push this over. And if he says like, he's I'm persona non grata in the Olivia Chow administration, spending another 4 years being the screaming voice in the wilderness is not going to be that effective. So either I beat her, or I'm out looking for another job because I don't want to be a city councillor under her mayoralty for another 4 years, or John Tory wins or somebody else, and I'm still out of a job, but maybe I've set myself up if I have a decent run and I can run provincially or I can run federally, or I can, have another job. And they're, potentially with, running for Doug Ford's party or whoever the next leader of the provincial Conservative is, or running for Pierre Poilievre, he's in line for potentially a cabinet post at some point, or at least like some kind of change on a bigger stage, right? So I do think there's a sense, even still, of playing with house money in that sense, where if you've determined, I don't want to spend any more years in opposition at Toronto City Council, so, and I don't want to spend another 4 years being a yes man for John Tory after he stabbed me in the back, And so instead, I'll take my shot. If I land a knockout punch and surprise everybody, I'm the mayor. And if not, I've at least, set myself up potentially. Unless it's absolutely humiliating. Like if I even do okay, I might be in line to move on to something else that I would find more fulfilling anyway.
Interesting.
This is like
it's
a
all
lot
interesting.
of psychoanalysis from afar. Like this is like...
Well, it's early. We got over a year to go here, right? And I got a couple of quick questions about John. So John Tory and Olivia Chow. So John Tory, neither has said they're going to run next year. John Tory, lest we forget, we'll just bring up the fact that he resigned because of an inappropriate relationship with a city hall staffer, lest we forget. I think it's... I don't think I'm telling any tales out of school to say John Tory appears to be still with this woman.
Yeah. Like my understanding, and I have not been in the room when this has happened, but my understanding is that he's been appearing in public with her.
Yeah.
That she is
his girlfriend.
Beloved friend, or is his girlfriend. Exactly.
She appears to be his girlfriend.
Yeah. Which I mean, if the public perception was that inappropriate relationship was a case of him victimizing somebody, she appears not to believe that, right? I mean, I have to say, and I never spoke to her or anything like that, but I never had the impression that she ever complained to anybody or felt hard done by in that relationship in any way. And so that was an important caveat. But like, if people still think it's inappropriate or that it wasn't inappropriate, he admitted that it was inappropriate the way the relationship began, but that the relationship is ongoing
because of a conflict of
and
interest.
that this adult woman is now his girlfriend would seem to dispel any lingering fears people had that he victimized her somehow.
See, I never ever even considered the victimization angle necessarily, and I never cared. I personally, speaking for myself, I never cared that if he was married to somebody else or any of that. What I felt was inappropriate about it was things like, okay, so there would be city trips to Europe or whatever, and then she'd accompany him, and then I can't remember if it was MLSE or if it was the FIFA bid, but just this whole conflict of interest that would emerge when you're having an intimate relationship with somebody when you're mayor of the city. So I think he did the right thing by resigning. I'm wondering if John Tory's girlfriend would approve of him running for mayor in 2026. I got to get her on the program at all. But just an interesting angle to consider here, because we talked many times on this program about was it sexual? What was it? Just that it was COVID times and he was separated from his wife, and maybe he found a confidant he could trust. Like, who knows? But clearly they're presenting themselves as a couple here in 2025.
Yeah, and presumably, I mean, I haven't spoken to John Tory about this, but given the reporting of some of my colleagues and then the chatter around from people who have talked to those who've talked to him or have talked to him, is that like presumably he is prepared if he runs again to discuss this stuff, right? Yeah. I think he thinks he shouldn't have to discuss it in too much detail and length because it's a settled issue. He resigned over the inappropriate beginnings of that relationship. He was at the time very concerned about the fallout for his family, both his estranged or ex-wife Barb, but also his children and whatnot, and for this woman and her family and friends, and so if he's got that all squared away in his personal life, where he feels like his family issues have been dealt with, and that he and she are in a good place, then he's coming back saying, there was a mistake, but I paid the price for it. I was accountable for it. You elected somebody else. Now I'd like to come back and finish the job. And sure, let's have a conversation about that. I think expects and hopes it might be a quick conversation, but presumably he's willing to have that conversation because there's no way he would delude himself into thinking nobody's going to look hard at it again. Because, I mean, them looking hard at it the first time is why he wound up resigning, right? And so, I just have to think that was a big part of the calculus. But I mean, I think another big part of the calculus there is like whether he thinks he can win. Like, I don't think he's going to run if he doesn't think he can win, right? I don't think he wants. I think part of why he wants to run back and serve one more term at least is to, like, you know, whatever unfinished business. But I think also not having the end of his political career be resigning in scandal. Having the end being that he went out on his own terms. He went and finished the things he thought needed tying up. You know, in his mind, put the city back on the right course or whatever, but finish the job properly. I don't think running and losing after having resigned in scandal is the end of his career that he's looking at. And it's not like the guy needs a job at this stage, right? Like, I mean, but I think he wants it. Like, again, this is even more so than with Bradford, because I have had almost no contact with him since he resigned. But my sense of him and everything about how he is, like, I think he misses being mayor of Toronto, and not even just like being the manager that he was and overseeing the government, but I think being the mascot for the city. Like, I think he really loved that part of the job. He would talk about how his favorite part of the job was going out every night of the week to, like, community barbecues and banquets and events and meeting with people and shaking hands and talking. And, you know, a lot of politicians will say something like that, like, oh, I love knocking on doors. But I think he loved being, like, Mr. Toronto for all of those people and getting to cut the ribbons and all of that. And I think he'd like to do that again, because I don't know how exciting his life is in retirement. I don't know.
Okay, now that
semi-retirement. He's on the radio.
Right, he's on the radio.
And he's got all of his corporate boards and all of that other stuff, right? Like,
I always found it interesting. He's on the radio on a Bell Media-owned stations when we consider John Tory a Rogers guy. Like, that is interesting, right?
Yeah.
You can tell me if it's not interesting.
No,
no.
It is interesting, and Rogers does not own a talk radio show.
100%.
But not only that, John Tory's very earliest careers, like, he was initially a journalist, I think, before he went to law school, like a young, and CFRB, which was I think the R in that stands for Rogers. Like, it was like
Canada's
founded
first
by
Rogers batteryless.
That's right. Yeah, and it was so, like, that was a radio station that when he first formed a relationship with it, 1010 News Talk 1010 is what we're talking about now. If anybody doesn't familiar with the call letters and the history, was owned by his business mentor, Mr. Rogers, Ted Rogers, at the time when he first started working there. But then I think at the time where he was, like, no longer leader of the provincial Progressive Conservatives, and he was looking for a high-profile gig where he could be in the public eye and sit and wait for what was next. Like, I think when he got that afternoon drive time show, again, Rogers didn't own a talk radio show at that point. It was like Astral Media bought it, and then Bell Media.
Standard had it. Standard had it, and then Astral bought it, and then Bell got it. Yeah.
So, like, but Rogers didn't have a talk radio show, and so in Toronto it was either 640, CBC, or CFRB, and the RB is a place where he had some history and relationships stretching back. So whether or not the current ownership had any role in that or not, you would think, like, some of the station management through the years or whatever, there's that residual feeling of, like, that being home, right?
So we talked a little bit here about John Tory's love life, so I just find it, I think it's a fun fact. So Olivia Chow, who, of course, was married to Jack Layton, the late Jack Layton, you still hear about that, she'll talk about him as the love of her life, and it was a beautiful relationship they had, and then Jack left us all too early. But Olivia has a not-so-secret boyfriend.
Yeah, this is what I heard. I haven't talked to her about it.
I've got good sources on the inside, but I mean, he's kind of a famous guy, I think. James Lockyer, the founding director of the Association in Defense of the Wrongly Convicted. That name just rolls off the tongue. Kind of a well-known guy, so not so secret boyfriend for Olivia Chow. She's seen him, and I do find it interesting at these events. Sometimes they both attend events. They don't actually, like, present as a couple. They are at the same event. It's not a secret that nobody's cheating on anybody. These are two single people having an adult relationship, which is good. I'm happy for Olivia, but it it will be interesting to see in 2026 if she runs again, whether she presents herself with her boyfriend, James.
It's one of those things too, and as I say, I have heard this, and I have no reason to doubt it, because the people I hear it from are people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
but I haven't asked her about it or anything like that. I do think, like, depending on how long they have been in a relationship and what a stage of seriousness they're at. Like, this is a woman with a very full-time job, right? Yeah. So I'm just thinking, like, from a public relations point of view, when Pierre Trudeau was a single prime minister, right, elected as a bachelor, like a confirmed bachelor, right? Like, and people just thought, like, and then, like, was dating, like celebrities,
Leona Boyd,
like Barbara Streisand and Leona Boyd, like, while he
Samantha
was prime
from
minister.
Sex and the City. I think.
It was obviously like a public relations coup for him to have these celebrities on, and then a teenage Margaret Sinclair who became his wife, like half his age, but like having these beautiful women on his arms at events was like a public relations coup at the time. But you have to think, like, not particularly good for the relationship, like especially that was a certain level of press scrutiny your personal life got back then. Today, in the like social media, TMZ, all panopticon we live in, right? Like, I think if you're just like dating and trying to see, hey, are we compatible? Like, we enjoy hanging out, we have a good time, there's some magic there, there's some chemistry, like, is this going to be a couple months? Is this going to be years? Is like, are we going to be partners? It's like, I might want to keep that stage of my relationship a little less high profile. Like because you don't want to have to come out and say, oh, this is my boyfriend, and then come out and have a mayoral press conference about how we broke up 3 months later, right?
See if it's going to stick here, maybe. Yeah. I understand. But just, I was just happy for Olivia. Like, that, because, her husband passed away so young, and just happy to hear it. Okay, so now that we're kind of like the TMZ now of Toronto. We've covered the John Tory's girlfriend. Does John Tory's girlfriend approve of him running for mayor in 2026? Will Olivia come out of not that she's hiding him, but just present as dating James Lockyer, the founding director of the Association in Defense of the Wrongly Convicted. So I realized, we talked about how long do these go, and they typically go 2 hours, and I was thinking, imagine we could get it down to 90 minutes, but we're an hour into this chat, Ed. We're still talking about an election that's over a year away.
We've reached the traditional bathroom break time.
Okay, you go to the bathroom.
And we haven't even gotten into the meat of the agenda yet.
But we're going to cook with gas here. I'm going to thank some partners, and you go to the washroom. I know you can still hear me, Ed Keenan, because I'm inviting you and your family to TMLX 21. All listeners invited. It's going to be November 29, which is the last Saturday of November. It's at noon. It's at Palma's Kitchen in Mississauga. Everybody who shows up, we're taking over the second floor. We're going to have a live recording there. You could jump on the mic and say hi. Everybody who shows up gets a free meal from Palma Pasta. They make the food there. They'll feed you. I'm going to bring some fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery, so you can grab a cold beer, have yourself, I don't know what you want, penne, you can have lasagna, you can have, there's so much good food at Penne Pasta, at Palma Pasta. So TMLX 21, November 29 at noon, Palma's Kitchen. Be there! Also, welcome back, Nick Iones. There was an episode of Building Toronto Skyline with Nick Iones that featured Brad Bradford. Brad Bradford and Nick Iones talking about affordable housing. Very interesting. Subscribe and enjoy Building Toronto Skyline with Nick Iones. You know, Ed, I'm always shouting out recyclemyelectronics.ca.
I know you always are. Every time
you're hoarding all these old cables from the 90s. Okay,
I'm refusing to recycle them, man.
Go to recycle.
What if I need that cable one of these days?
This is what people think. Just let it go. Let it go, like they'd say in Frozen, okay? You got that old laptop from 2009. You got that your old sports Sony Walkman that doesn't work anymore. All of that. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca and find out where to drop it off. And I want to shout out a gentleman named Doug Mills. Doug Mills owns and operates Blue Sky Agency. Blue Sky has forged partnerships with established office furniture brands like Silent and Green Furniture Concept and Rouliard, and he's eager to chat with any and all Toronto Mike listeners who are looking for dynamic and creative work environments, he can be reached, Doug, at blueskyagency.ca. Let him know you're an FOTM. I would just say that I was reading in the Toronto Star, great newspaper, by the way, Ed Keenan. I was reading about some of the big banks, and I know this from personal experience.
They don't have enough desks.
Yeah, like they called back, and I will say, I'll speak for somebody who lives with me, even sleeps with me, Ed, since we're talking about everybody's lovers.
Is it James
okay?
Locke here? Oh, no, wait. Sorry. That's a different
That's
subject.
a different person's potential lover, alleged lover. It's all good. But my lover, she basically was called back 4 days a week to a certain big company, a big bank, and they told her to stay home for 2 weeks while they configure work environments. I hope they talked to Doug at Blue Sky Agency, okay, how to get that right. But it absolutely is an issue. There's a lack of seats, a lack of places to work.
Yeah.
But you have to be there. I'm not talking about my wife anymore or where she works. I'm now talking about other banks. I wonder aloud if this is simply a way to let's reduce our headcount, our payroll, without having to, let somebody go and then sever them fairly. They'll quit because we basically told them part of working here is being
pull up a piece of the floor.
Yeah, like
sit crisscross applesauce there while you do your work.
like you got to be here 4 days a week, and possibly many people, particularly during the pandemic, kind of fell in love with what I fell in love with long ago. You're well familiar with it, but working from home. Like I just think it's interesting that we have all these people who, if you want to work here, you got to be in the office 4 days a week, and if you don't come to the office 4 days a week, we can now dismiss you for cause and not sever you.
But I have sympathies on both sides of the back to the office, work from home debate, because I actually think, I already had an arrangement before COVID where I could work from home part-time. I had a hybrid arrangement. My bosses wanted to see me in the office sometimes before I went to DC. But I would often be working from the field though too, right? Sometimes I work from home, sometimes I work from the office. Sometimes I'd be working from a donut shop in Scarborough because I was interviewing somebody out there about something or whatever, right?
Right.
But the time I spent in the office was actually how I got to feel like a part of the team there, not just seeing my bosses there. And often if I'm working from the office, it's I wander over to my editor's desk and say, hey, I'm thinking about this, but what about also this? And this. But also my colleagues are there working on stuff at the desk beside me, and the kind of water cooler chat that could be considered a distraction is also where a lot of our best ideas come from.
You're
we generate
right.
and I don't personally at least get any of that from my Slack channels or my Zoom. These are just annoying, stupid mailboxes that I have to now check in addition to my my other 1,500 email text message boxes I've got on my phone. And so I think there's real value from having them work in person there. I also think there's a real value to a lot of people in not having to commute into the office. I think I am more productive when I work from home. If I just work away from other people, if I'm in a room by myself, I can accomplish twice as much because I'm intensely focused on the job, right? Without distractions. But so on the one hand, I can be more productive, but on the other hand, the distractions are often what makes me more productive in the long term and are enriching in their own way. But all of that said, in the pre-hybrid, pre-work from home days, when you got a job, they said, this is your cubicle. This is your desk. Put a picture of your children on this desk.
Yeah.
Leave your favorite coffee mug here. Right. And tomorrow when you come back, you'll sit at the same desk with your stuff on it. And now, the Star is one of the places, and I'll actually say, working at the Well in the new offices in the Star is actually a pretty great place to work. It's a pretty cool office to come into. It's got a lot of, the standing desks and bells and whistles and good technology in it, and it's a decent setup. But we have a hoteling system where you have to book a desk when you get in there, and there aren't enough desks for the entire staff if we all showed up on the same day. And if banks have a office where they expect everybody to come and they don't have enough desks for everybody to sit, then that's a strange thing, because it does seem like if you want people in the office full time, you got to provide them a full time place to work, and ideally it would be like their own place with their team next to them, so that all those good knock-on effects where like sitting side by side with your coworkers is giving you a sense of mission and allowing you to just shout over and say, hey, what do you think of this thing? Like none of that works if you have 100 desks for 300 staff.
Absolutely right.
Like, what are they pulling up? They're sitting in the cafeteria. They're like,
right.
Or they're wandering to other floors that the banks
different
also own and
teams get a
sitting in
different. The way it's worked in somebody I know's workplace, different teams get different days of the week off. So they do. So it's not like everybody can take Friday off, because everybody wants Friday off. I always felt like
when you say off, you mean working from home.
Sorry, I should say that clearer. Working from home, of course. Yeah. I remember if I had an opportunity to work from home, I'd want to work from home on a Monday, but that's just me. But so different days of the week for different teams, they call them teams or whatever. Hey, here's what we're going to do, Ed Keenan. Love your visit so much, but I'm actually I have 5 topics. Okay. And we're going to spend 10 minutes on each one.
All right.
Okay?
You can have a timer.
Do you think you can do that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
You just like.
I'll set you up, and then at the end there'll be a catch-all if there's anything you had on your mind.
Like a rapid-fire round or something like that.
I love this. Okay, we're building it. We're building it from scratch here. Okay, so the first one, you've alluded to it already. Toronto, the Parkside speed camera was cut down for the 7th time, and Doug Ford's now meddling in municipal politics again. Please,
this fucking guy. Every time we circle around a lot. Like I've been watching and covering and writing about Doug Ford for a lot of years, right? And there come times in his life where I say, I don't agree with a lot of his big policy things, but I agree with he's done some of the right things. He seems to want to do a bunch of the right things. He seems to be persuadable. Maybe he's just a big oaf who and then he just comes out and does these most asinine things. And it's like, so like, the bike lanes and all of that. But out of nowhere, the stupid speed cameras. Like 3 months ago, this was not a province-wide issue. It wasn't even really an issue. Here's the thing about photo radar speed cameras is that everyone hates getting a ticket from them personally, and I've gotten some, and I don't it's not a good feeling. But everybody likes having them on their street where their kids live and walk, right? Like people want them in their neighborhoods. They work. They are among the most successful traffic interventions, like everywhere they are put in place. They actually show dramatic, measurable, almost immediate results in slowing down traffic, saving lives, like preventing collisions, right?
Right.
Like slowing down traffic, slowing down the speed of travel really does prevent deaths, right? And prevent serious injuries and these are shown to work. They're one of the most effective interventions there are. And that's been shown by research here in Toronto, across Canada, across North America, even in other countries. It's like but here's the other thing, and I wrote about this recently. They're popular. People like them. Every politician seems to have a gut instinct that everybody hates them, but they work. And then every time they do polling, it actually across, like in CAA conducted a poll in Ontario just earlier released it in July, I think. And it was more than 60% of people, I think it was roughly 2/3 of people approve of having these in speed zones, right? The police department, the chiefs of police say they work and we should have more of them. The CAA, sorry, let me back up. Mm-hmm. In releasing that poll that says most people like them, CAA, whose whole job, they're a membership-based organization that depends on dues, in which advocacy for drivers is their job, say, yeah, let's have more of these. The police chiefs say, let's have more of these. The Hospital for Sick Children released a massive study with TMU that said, these work. They have dramatically reduced everything. There was basically, other than your drunk uncle whining at night, there was no constituency for getting rid of them, except a bunch of criminals, a criminal and or bunch of criminals who kept cutting the things down. Famously on Parkside Drive, repeatedly, almost tauntingly, like chopping them down one time.
Several times.
Yeah. But then also across the rest of the city, including like 12 or 14 in one night a few weeks ago. But it was like out of the blue commenting on that. It's like, oh, do you see Toronto is becoming a laughingstock because they can't catch this criminal whose life work seems to be, or whose favorite hobby seems to be making the streets less dangerous. Beside a park with a big playground here, he keeps chopping down the only thing that stops drivers from speeding. And like doing thousands of dollars of property damage in the meantime. What do you think about that, Doug Ford? And Doug Ford basically said, I think whoever that is doing a public service.
Wow.
I'm not quoting him there.
Right.
But what he said is those speed cameras should come down. If mayor won't take them down, I'm going to take them down because they're just a tax grab, right? So I don't know if like a member of his family is that vandal, or if it's secretly him in the dead of night, or if they've just twigged his sympathy. But like that was the only public lobby. Like those were the only public expressions of opposition to these prior to Doug Ford changing them. And now here's the crazy thing. You know who gave us those speed
Doug
cameras
Ford.
in the first place? It's
2019.
Doug Ford. That's right.
His government greenlit
Stephen
these
Del
speed
Duca
traps.
wrote the initial legislation when Kathleen Wynne was the prime minister, and Stephen Del Duca was the minister of transportation. But they were finally enacted by Doug Ford. And then Stephen Del Duca, now the mayor of the Vaughan, was the first to step out and get ahead of the premier. The premier started whining about them. And so Stephen Del Duca said, oh, yes, sir, please, can I have some more? And he immediately banned them in his own city. And then Doug Ford came out and banned them in the rest of it, the whole rest of the way. And there's just this, like, the final thing on it, right? It's like Doug Ford, he kept saying, and this is the one thing that I thought I agreed with him about. Because before he started banning them, he was just saying, you know what, I think they should have bigger signs. Like, they shouldn't be surprising anybody. You need a flashing thing there, right? To really get your attention. Yeah. And I was like, you know what, they could probably make them bigger. Like, I see the sign that says your speed, and there's a flashing number that says I'm going, 38, and then I realize, oh, it's a 30 zone on a little side street here. I should slow right down, and I do. And it works, and that's great. And yes, if you can make that bigger and more noticeable, let's do that. So at his press conference, he was standing in front of exactly the kind of signs he was talking about. And I think he may have borrowed them from the city of Toronto, because they are exactly the signs we already have. They're not bigger or more noticeable. They don't flash anymore. They were the signs. And he was saying, like, the cities won't put these in because they want to do their tax grab. Like, this is what would actually work, but they just won't do it. And I was like, has it been so long since you had to drive yourself anywhere that you don't realize those are the signs we actually have in every single speed camera zone already? It's just like almost everything about this to me is like, usually, even when I disagree with Doug Ford, I think I can see why he's doing that as a political move. I can understand the politics of this for him. Presumably, he thinks, his gut tells him, there's some, like, valuable rump of disgruntled speedsters out there who want these removed. But I'm not sure, even talking to people from across the political spectrum, even talking to conservatives, that's actually the case. I don't know. It's just puzzling. But it's the most puzzling thing about it is that I just think, like, this is something that actually works. And as a driver, I mean, I didn't like getting the tickets, but I know why it works, because now I slowed down. I had to pay $100 and now I have to slow down, right?
Pedestrians and cyclists are safer, and it's a source of revenue for the city.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was Doug Ford's government that greenlit these photo radar speed traps in the first place back in 2019. So, of course, they've got to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Geez, what bugs me is Parkside, and I'm a West End guy, so I can tell you, Parkside is like a race car track.
Yeah, I think Parkside. I used to live on Keele Street, which is what Parkside turns
I delivered
into.
GLB to you there.
Yeah. Parkside becomes Keele Street, north of Bloor, and so I'm really familiar with it. And I've lived in the neighborhood for a long time. I still live near High Park now, on the other side of it. But it's an interesting case because it is like a purely residential on one side of the street, just the park, like High Park on the other side of the street.
High Park on the other side.
So this is like the definition of like in terms of the uses of it, there's like some schools around there and that, but there's like basically a big public park and then a bunch of houses facing the park.
Right.
That's where you would normally have like a really quiet street and you'd expect children to be running across it and all of that. And yet it is one of the only ways to get from Lakeshore Boulevard, right where the Gardner Expressway lets off, like right where Lakeshore and the Gardner kind of like the big on-off ramps there. The only way to get from there up to the north central part of the city, like if you're going to like Keele and Eglinton or Runnymede and Eglinton or
well, you got
like
Ellis
St. Clair or whatever.
You're right.
Yeah, but no, what Ellis doesn't actually take you all the way up, and depending on which way you're coming off the Gardner, you can't take Ellis. But it's like Parkside is one of the main routes.
Right.
And if you take Ellis, you then have to turn on Bloor and figure out how you're going to get over there. So Keele Street actually
so it's probably
goes
the next
up
one
north.
after Windermere, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's the only way, like Parkside turns into Keele Street,
right,
which goes up to the north end of the city. Like even if you were trying to get up to the 401 from there, or Black Creek, right? Like you take Keele up and then you
a north-south artery,
Weston Road onto Black Creek Road,
right?
And people are coming off the highway already going fast, and you have that weird psychological effect. So it's like, it is a weird case because it really should be a low-speed street. And yet it's mostly used as a like a highway bypass system or a like, I'm trying to remember, like a spur road between two highways or between mass
like the
roads.
Allen was supposed to be kind of deal, whatever,
And so I understand, but like in the end, what they really need to do on Parkside, and Matt Elliott, who writes for The Star, has said this a bunch of times, is that like Parkside, most cameras, they start giving out fines and people stop speeding. Parkside became permanent because they still had so many fines going out, right? It's like there's a persistent problem. And that persistent problem means, okay, what you need to do is like make the street narrower, put speed bumps there or something out. Other kinds of traffic interventions that
calming
they do.
measures.
Calming measures. Like you can do things with design that make it feel like a road where it's dangerous to go faster than 40, right?
Right.
And they haven't done that because it still feels like a road that's built for you to drive 60 on. And so that's what people do.
If I
or
may,
they drive faster than that.
So we've hit our 10-minute limit
I
here,
thought
but
we were way over 10. So
we may be. I may be generous because I like you, but I just going to leave this, and again, pure speculation. But have we considered, has the Toronto Star considered possibly that the speed camera being cut down is an inside job? Have we considered it's not an angry motorist or a civilian, that perhaps it's somebody more on the inside? And maybe
like
that's
the
why
Premier
that's
himself.
why
I just suggested that earlier, but no.
Possibly could it be somebody with TPS, for example? Again, just speculative. Lauren Honigman wants me to say just speculating here.
I mean, it's possible, although
that's why you wouldn't be able to catch, like Dexter. You know, we didn't catch the serial killer. He works for
The Star has explored a lot of angles on this, and some of the people, Raju Madhar, like in particular, are kind of sick of reporting it out, but also like fascinated by all the wrinkles of it. But it like becomes a full-time job all of a sudden, this one story.
Right.
But like I don't think there's any reason to think that it's like a police officer in particular or
but
whatever.
It's weird we can't catch
I think also
this,
like the Toronto
person.
Police Service, like here's the thing is that our police service more than a decade ago, basically stopped enforcing traffic laws altogether, more or less. They just said, we need to direct our resources at real crime. That's what
in
cops
High Park,
want to do.
Cyclists who don't come to a complete stop at stop signs.
And so they dedicate very little of the... So they have this like traffic enforcement unit that goes out and does crackdowns. And one day they're doing a speed trap in one place. Right. One day they're ticketing cyclists in High Park. One day they're out catching people who don't stop at stop signs. And it's like, maybe they shouldn't do that. But it used to be that there were like traffic enforcement broadly across the city. And you look at the stats on the number of tickets given out for various highway traffic act things. And at a certain point, the numbers just drop way down because the police said, we're going to put everybody on murder and gun crime. And we're not going to have people out there, you know, catching you coasting through a yellow light. Right. And, you know, a lot of us who care about like safety on the roads had said, I want to be serious about those other crimes too, but we can't afford to stop enforcing traffic laws altogether. Like, I have never been pulled over for any reason in my entire time as a driver. And when I was a kid, my parents,
that's incredible.
My friends' parents had been pulled over all the time.
There
are just no police out there policing the streets, like policing me as a driver. Now some cop's going to hear this and look up my license plate number and find me and pull me over just so. But the thing is that like, but so cops don't want to do it, right? And so this is the magic where like the law gets enforced, and for the people who love to speed, like, well, you still get the fine, but guess what? Because it's a automated camera and we can't identify who the driver is, you don't get the demerit points, right? Like, it doesn't affect your insurance at all.
Right.
It's just a fine, right? But like, the cops don't want to be out there doing this. Like, I mean, you're going to force some cop to stand on Parkside Drive pointing a radar gun and radio some other cop to pull him over. Like, it's like, they don't want to do this police work.
All right, listen, I had a... no, because now we're going to move on to the next one here. So I got 5 of these things. But this was a comment left. So we do this every quarter, and then I post it on torontomike.com, and I put our little photo there. And I don't know, you may or may not have a bat. It's up to you at the new photo I'm going to take with you at By Toronto Tree. But Sneaky Meowers, this is the handle of the person who wrote this, and I want to raise this.
Oh, hey, Mom.
Sneaky Meowers.
I'm sure that's her, yeah.
Why is almost everyone, including you and Ed, I'm the you in that sentence, still assuming this spa water park thing is actually going to be built? It looks like that would likely require hundreds of millions of dollars that this Therme, the smaller, more phony one, almost certainly does not have. I haven't heard or seen anything to contradict or discredit what was revealed by auditors, then the New York Times article back in April. And as it pitched its vision for Toronto, Therme's, I hope I'm saying that right, Therme's finances appeared to be shaky. Auditors found it was losing money and had less than 1 million euros in equity. The company has yet to secure outside investment for its Toronto project. There seems to be a very strange mindset that afflicts a lot of otherwise sensible grown adults, causing them to naively ignore anything regarding money, the only factor that really matters, and think something like they've got a bunch of really cool-looking computer images that some 15-year-old could have made up. That must mean they're serious and legitimate, right? That's all in quotes, by the way. So, do you want to just reply to Sneaky Meowers, who definitely listens and just thinks we're giving too much... Because we do talk like it's going to happen.
Well, I mean... It's possible,
big boondoggles?
It's possible Sneaky Meowers has read those audit documents and New York Times story and stuff closer than I have.
Well, he links to it.
Or speaks a language I don't speak. No, I've read them.
Yeah,
I know. And I understood them to mean something different than what the Sneaky Hours does. So I'm trying to acknowledge. I'm trying to acknowledge that this person could be onto something that I have missed. Right. But it never. I think. And Thurman has answered what they think. The misunderstandings of their finances as reported in that the audit system that they used like didn't allow them to show some of their sources of real revenue and all of that, blah, 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 blah. But the point is that like, I don't think there's actually much of a question about whether they have the financing to construct the project in Toronto. I mean, the construction is underway. They're on the water.
Well, I see them working on it.
Yeah,
I bike by it every day.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's what I have heard more frequently expressed by some of the skeptics is whether they have the kind of financing and business plan that will allow them to successfully run this business. And if not, what will that big glass shed be used for once it's no longer a water park? Because that may not be viable in the long term. I'm speaking slowly because I'm trying to think, like, maybe there's a question here, but even the most vocal critics who have been following this most closely have never suggested to me that this company is not actually going to be able to build it.
Well, that is the question.
They take it as
like
a
the
given
question, yeah.
that it will be able to build. I mean, and they have at least one other operating one in Budapest, right?
So the actual question, which is the first line of this thing, is why is almost everyone still assuming this spa/water park thing is actually going to be built? So the answer to that question is we're assuming it's going to be built because it's been approved and it's happening. Like, is that
because the construction's underway, but also because nothing I read in those in that led me to think they didn't have enough financing to actually construct the one in Toronto. Like the financial health of the company is certainly something I question. And maybe I need to take a closer look.
Well, you wrote, I think you're the author of the piece in the Toronto Star that says inside the Ford government, there was worry the Ontario Place Spa was, quote, high risk, unquote.
Yeah,
they signed a 95-year, they signed a 95-year lease knowing that it was high risk venture.
Yeah. I mean,
that's more fuel for the fire.
Yeah. No. Certainly from the beginning, I don't think there's any lack of people questioning whether this is going to be a viable business or not. And there's a lot of, speculation about whether or not they're going to turn it into a casino afterwards, or there's some other sweetheart deal where once the land is developed and turned into this building, it will be sold off cheap to somebody else. Or a lot of people who just worry this business is going to go bankrupt and we're going to have this white elephant sitting vacant on the waterfront, right? I should maybe have a better answer. It's just that I hadn't given any thought because none of the, like, and I'm a columnist who often comments on things, and I try to do a little bit of research, but I have colleagues and friends who have, like, dug into the financials of this company and written, John Lawrence has written quite a bit about the business plan and the whatnot, and I haven't seen any of them suggest that there's a reason to doubt they could actually, like, build it, but maybe there is. Maybe, but then I don't know why destroy what was there and break ground on it if you have no hope of finishing it. I don't know what
there's the question, right?
I don't know what their motive would be to fraudulently, like, plow themselves towards bankruptcy while destroying the Toronto waterfront in the meantime if they don't think they have a viable business at the end of it. Like they may be a shaky business, but I don't know.
Oh, God, stay tuned. Make sure we can't just be all election in 2026. We got to keep our eye on this, okay? Because we've had many passionate conversations about what's happening at Ontario Place, and we got to keep our good eye on what's going on with this. Is it an Austrian company? I'm trying to remember. Therme? Austrian? Possibly? You Google that. Okay, so...
Yeah.
So I'm going to now read a nice...
It's hard to Google because there are a lot of other companies that use that same name. Including even one in, like, the 905 somewhere.
Oh, jeez. Well, Austria Therme. I don't know. But something smells. There's something rotten in the state of Denmark. Some wise British guy wrote that once, so keep your eye on it. Now, speaking of wise people, I don't think he's British, though, but Lanrick. Do you remember he was the bicycle mayor of Toronto? I don't think that's an elected position, but Lanrick, he's been over for many a conversation. I'm going to read something he wrote for you, okay, Ed?
Okay.
But I know you're multitasking here, but keep one ear open here. Lanrick writes, Ed Keenan, that's you. Ed Keenan wrote the book, The Art of the Possible, An Everyday Guide to Politics. I'm going to pause and ask you, is he correct? Did you write that book?
Yeah, it came out, like, I guess 10 years ago today.
I know, I'm just setting you up
10 years ago last week.
Oh, happy anniversary. Happy anniversary. If he had a chance to update the book, what chapters would he include for the 2025 edition? So that's an actual question, but then he has something to say, so I'm going to kind of throw it in here. But he says, Lanrick again says this, I think local politics is broken. I also think it's the most important aspect of living in a democratic society. So maybe the ultimate question is, how do we fix it? Because selfishly, I've got kids and I need this shit to work for them.
So I did get a chance to update it before the last American election because they were doing a paperback American edition. And, there was already some things that needed updating just about like I had used as a little case study, some things that happened in Iran that turned out to not be like a success story in the end and all of that. Some of the language was already needing to be updated to current sensitivity guides and whatnot. But I mean, it's hard because I think a lot of this stuff, and I'm going to ask you to repeat part of what Landrick wrote there, just because trying to determine where Therm was, I was partly distracted.
Oh, yeah,
I think
yeah.
I missed
You want me
the
to read
most
it again? I
important
enjoy
part.
channeling
Just
my inner Landrick.
yeah. Like,
Okay, so you
starting with, I think local politics is broken,
Okay.
right?
I think local politics is broken. I also think it's one of the most important aspects of living in a democratic society. So maybe the ultimate question is, how do we fix it? Because selfishly, I've got kids and I need this shit to work for them.
Yeah, and I think local politics is broken, or is appearing to be broken, but also like man, what's happening in the United States right now is like showing a lot of ways where like politics in general is broken. Like what we thought of as liberal democracies are potentially fracturing and breaking and like being exploited and then perverted, right? And it's interesting because I know this started and then maybe it was a launching point, but like I wrote that book to not be sort of like this is how a bill becomes a law or this is how our system like works. I wanted you to be able to read it about principles of what politics is about that would apply equally across the Western world for sure, the English-speaking world, but also referring to the concept of politics in a pluralistic democratic society, right? Like that's really what the book is about. And part of the things I talked about how politics breaks down is like when corruption is allowed to flow, when people become cynical and apathetic, it creates a cycle that then degrades the whole system and it starts to break. And about how we can on a mass level be led in the wrong direction, by psychological tricks and things, right? And I mean, I was trying to write that at a middle school level of understanding of the basic principles of it. And so I don't know how much I would like update it to, but I think a lot of the things that are in passing and I think most of a chapter I actually cut out of the finished product, which maybe I would want reinserted if we were doing an update about downsides that can really emerge, like how corruption can set in and why it needs to be avoided. Maybe if I was doing another edition, I'd put that back in. But I mean, the more interesting question is like how do we fix it, right? Like, because this is and I don't know the answer. Like, I think that for local politics in particular, because that's what Landrick mentioned, is like local politics works best, really, when decisions are made closest to the people. Like when the people have an actual voice in that decision. And I think actually like in cases like NIMBYism and whatnot, it can be the most frustrating and it can be a big obstacle to actually getting things done, right? But I do think that like having people in a neighborhood help decide how their neighbor should be governed, like what to put in the local park and what to that more participation makes for a better government, like less corruption, but decisions that more reflect what the people here who live in this place want. It gives them more pride of place. It like actually makes it responsive to them. And yet we have devolved decision-making further and further away so that our local city councilors represent over 100,000 people in most cases, in all cases, I think, like often represent more than the, like some wards are more populous than some provinces, right? Like it's like, and they've got one city councilor for that. And so then there's 25 of them making decisions for the whole city.
Right.
And there's no like equivalent of like London has these like boroughs and like, you know, hundreds of mayors for like little subdivision parts of London, right? In their own little councils. Like New York City has like borough presidents and borough councils. And then they have beyond that, like little neighborhood councils. And a lot of those are like, you know, like elected but volunteer, like unpaid positions. But you have like these ward councils making actual decisions about how to allocate some of the money in their area and all of that. And through that, you have a system where people can be involved and decision-making reflects, you know, somewhat like the will of the people, and not just like the will of the people in some like yes-no referendum sense, but like actually involves them, right? Like, or involves somebody that they know or somebody that they might meet, right? Regularly. And I don't know how we get back to that. But I also think that like the media landscape we live in, and I don't even mean the news media. I mean like our information, like digital landscape. Our culture is increasingly moving away from the kinds of things that would lead us to a more responsive and like less broken local politics. I mean, I work at the Toronto Star where we have four full-time reporters working in the bureau at City Hall. We have a well-staffed Queen's Park bureau, right? Like we're covering local politics, but nobody else at City Hall has that. They all have one reporter there, right? But beyond that, that's not just, it's like, how many full-time people are there covering Mississauga City Hall? How many full-time people are covering Ajax City Hall? Like I doubt one.
Wow.
Like I doubt there's any.
Right.
Maybe one. Like the Star has a reporter covering the 905, right? We'll send reporters if we know something's going on, but like a lot of these small places that don't even have a news organization representing
Like
them,
not
right?
even the CBC.
Like a Perry Sound or whatever. There's no local newspaper left in Perry Sound, I don't think. You know, there's a regional CBC somewhere there, but like who's covering their local politics? Nobody, right? Like, and that's just one part of it. So part of that is like, are there watchdogs there? But even like, if you live there, how are you even supposed to know what the hell's going on? And in a, so man,
sounds dire,
I'm
man. Like you're bumming me out. You're bumming me out.
And how do you fix it is the really good question. I feel like in Toronto, there are things we could do if we wanted to as a city. And maybe it would be hard to get a mandate to do these things. But I think like there are ways where you could try to consult people more, like get decision-making closer to them. And the question is just going to be whether we can actually get citizens to still want to be involved in that stuff other than standing up to say no big buildings in my neighborhood.
Right. Oh, I don't want that shelter
man,
in my
they
neighborhood.
sure show
That's
up to
what
that.
gets them out. Yeah.
Like those people will always show up to meetings, right?
Right.
And the problem is you can't just let them be the only voices at the meetings. Not them and the rich developer and nobody else, right? Like, but how do we get them to the meetings? I feel like there's stuff Toronto could do. I think it's harder as a more general, broadly applied situation, and I honestly don't know the answers. I would have to
good food for thought.
to do the kind of research that would lead me to write a new book.
This is what gets you back every quarter. So I've decided we're heading to rapid fire realm here. So again, you may want to espouse for 15 minutes on this topic, but you're not allowed to. Okay, we got 20 minutes to go, and I have a few quick hits. One is an Ontario court has deemed the province's plan to remove 3 major Toronto bike lanes unconstitutional.
Yeah. Isn't that delicious? I didn't think that was going to happen. But yeah, I mean, a judge, if you read that decision or the details of that decision, what you see too is that it's not that we have some inherent right to bike lanes. It's that in a case where a public policy that is in existence is shown, where removing that policy, changing that policy is shown to like endanger lives, and that doing so without a proper rationale, without solid reasons, is unconstitutional, and they're appealing it. It may lose on appeal.
Of course, it may lose on appeal.
But it is like specifically that the provincial government disregarded like even the advice of their own experts, their own in-house people,
right?
And that this policy would not serve any public purpose because it will not actually improve travel times,
right?
Like it will,
but it
not.
It will.
There's
make
no
it
reason
more dangerous
to believe
for cyclists
that it will achieve the goal of making traffic move any faster,
right?
Car traffic move any faster, and it will endanger the lives of cyclists, and so having just like disregarded all the evidence and standard ways to do that to kind of meddle in the city's affairs, the judges said they can't do it. And it's like kind of satisfying to see them say that. It's kind of satisfying to see a judge say what some of us have been saying all along, is that like this isn't just like mean-spirited. It's not just like, oh, you're taking the side of car drivers over cyclists, because guess what? I'm both, right?
Oh yeah, and I'm both as well.
And it's also that you will not achieve your goals. Like you're going to screw up a bunch of people's lives and nothing is going to be better for anyone, right? It's going to be worse for some people and just as bad as it is now for the other people. And yet you want to confidently march ahead and do it anyway. And they probably will eventually do some version of it anyway, despite but they're appealing. But I think on Blue or West, they are going to go ahead and try and add back an extra lane of traffic without removing the bike lanes in the meantime. Like that's still to be confirmed, but which would be a major victory for Olivia Chow.
Well, and also
because she's been lobbying for a potential compromise on the Kingsway area in exactly that way.
So on the note of the Blue or bike lane, which Toronto Mike uses so regularly, he forgets what it was like before they were implemented. But is there any update at all on this lawsuit against Amber Morley, the city councillor for the Blue or bike lane here? Like, is there anything in that note, or is that still active, or was that thrown out? Or I assume it's still progressing.
I have not. If there was any update, I don't have it to provide. But that lawsuit was like just the worst kind of garbage, right? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, but I don't even think they would have standing to sue her personally over.
But I'm surprised it hasn't been tossed out.
I think, I think it will get tossed as soon as it's there. I don't think you can personally sue politicians over public policy decisions made by the city council.
Could you imagine?
I don't think you can.
Could you imagine? Okay, so again, these are rapid fire questions.
Which means I think this is the rapid fire answer. That lawsuit was a publicity stunt, not a lawsuit, right?
Eglinton Crosstown LRT. You almost got away a whole episode without me bringing it up, but I don't know. Another delay? Like, do you have a succinct update on the most current delay?
Well, it's good news, folks. Metrolinx is doing revenue service testing, which means they're running like full service, like it will be when it goes into service. So it's like every 3 minutes or every 5 minutes or whatever the scheduled time is. They're just running the trains on the full service now. They've got the drivers out there. They've got the station staffed up because they got to do a 30-day simulation of full service before they can hand it over to the TTC. And then the TTC has to do its own revenue service demonstration for, I don't know, maybe 30 days, maybe 60 days, maybe 90 days. They have to do their own testing. If those 2 phases of testing don't uncover new problems that further delay it, then we'll be probably, so we're like looking at what, early new year, I think. But I mean, who knows at this point, right? But as I try to look on the bright side at this point, is that we're seeing delays about a fully constructed thing that they're capable of running full service on, which means like we're not as far away as
The
we
end
were.
is nigh.
Yeah, but it's not nearly as nigh as we'd like it to be, man.
Right. Wild. Okay, that's wild. We'll be talking about that in January. Don't worry. Fun fact, Daniel Dale, who you replaced kind of as the DC guy, the guy covering Washington
At
for the
the Toronto Star. He
right,
was
'cause
still in DC. So
well, he
I
moved
got
to
yeah.
CNN, but he's back here now. So the fun fact is that he's still doing his CNN fact check thing, but he's doing it from Toronto now. So Daniel Dale now lives in Toronto again.
Oh, okay.
Just
Well,
a fun
I
fact
should
for you
get
since the
together
summer.
with him,
Yeah, invite me to that. I want to get Daniel Dale on the program. Help me do that. Okay. Imperial Pub closing after
man.
81 years.
You save this to the end of rapid fire. I'm so sad. I went to Ryerson University. For decades, that has been a hangout of Ryerson University people. It was also the home of the Art Bar Poetry Series. I used to read there. I used to go watch people read there. I have one of my favorite, dive bars, just a whole cross-section of society, the aquarium bar downstairs, the library pub upstairs, that it survived the redevelopment of Ryerson and TMU's campus, and then also survived the redevelopment of Young Dundas Square into what it is now, made you think it was going to be
Sankofa
there
Square?
forever.
Yeah.
And yet it's like a great, memorable example of a type of beloved local bar that is an endangered species in Toronto. And I'll probably write about it before it closes. I got to go back
I know you
there.
will.
Yeah.
Because you've written about the old Yonge Street vanishing. And you'll definitely write about the Imperial Pub closing after 81 years. Couple of notes from listeners, and then we did it. We did it in 2 hours here, unless there's anything on your mind. But the two things I'm bringing up is, one is Joe Louis just sent in a comment for us. He says, city councilors should be subject to a 3-term limit. 1 term to learn the ropes, and 2 more terms to get shit done. That's Joe Louis' opinion. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, Joe, I'm a big fan of your cakes. But beyond that, I think
I like his cakes too.
voters, increasingly, I do come around to considering these kinds of things like term limits. I used to be more like, hey, let's look at the principle of this thing and all of that. And I would say voters could impose their own term limits, right? And instead what happens is that voters keep returning the same people again and again. You could say it's through apathy or simple familiarity or whatever. I used to be really against it. I will say, new city councilors really do take a while to learn the ropes, right? There is something valuable about some of the veterans. There's drawbacks to them having been there forever, but it's also they know how things work, and so for their team, they're really valuable to have around to say this is how we can get stuff done. But I mean, it's I'd be more in favor of a 3-term limit than a 2-term limit, and it might be something really worth looking at.
Okay, Joe Louis hit it out of the park there. Walk of Life. That's a good Dire Straits song, right? Walk of Life. Brothers in Arms. I had the cassette.
I have that on vinyl.
It's very good.
I think never mind.
Well, you're gonna give me some Dire Straits hot Mark
No.
Knopfler.
It's not even a hot take.
Okay.
It's I think if you listen to it on a good stereo, from not the radio edit, the full record version, the intro to Money for Nothing is just such a perfect rock and roll moment. When it comes up that humming.
No, I can hear it in my head right now. And you know whose voice that is?
Sting.
Yeah, I know.
And then uncredited.
Well, I know. I
no?
wondered if you knew.
But then it comes to that, and then that riff, and the tone on that riff, and and when it comes after all that build up and that
very good.
So perfect. Also, the rest of the album, good too. Even the rest of that song, not terrible, but perfect rock and roll moment.
No argument from me. Love it very much. And
but Brothers in Arms had a question or a statement.
no, it's
or a
Walk of Life.
Walk of Life.
By the
Sorry.
way,
Yeah.
But Brothers in Arms, which is the name of the album and a cut on the album, was used effectively. Probably my favorite scene of all time in The West Wing. I don't know if you remember this. President Bartlett smoking a dart
Right.
and throws down the cigarette, kind of stomps it out. I think this is when he's going to run again, but he promised his wife he wouldn't because he has multiple sclerosis, as I recall. And Stalker Channing is his wife, and I think she has a great line about like, we had a deal or something like that. But Brothers in Arms is playing. And like,
I have altered the deal. Pray I do not alter it further. The
Darth
famous President Bartlett quote. Yes, I love
President
that
Vader.
scene.
Okay.
No, okay, sorry. So what happens then? Walk of Life comes on?
Yeah, Walk of Life. No, yes, you're that's fine. See, we got time here. Okay. Walk of Life says, I'd love to know if there's any, if Ed Keenan has any information on the new Toronto Island ferries. They look cool, but I'm no sea captain or lake captain.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I should have more information than I do. I have looked at them, and nothing beyond that. So
Okay.
I should look closer at them.
Well, for next
When
time.
they first ordered them, I thought they had made a mistake, that they should have gone with much larger, much faster ferries. They didn't. That decision's beyond us. But like, it seems to have taken a absurdly long amount of time for us to get them. But next time, if you're sending questions the next time I'm
Walk
coming
of
in,
Life.
send the same one and I'll try and have more of an answer.
I want those gondolas that Josh Matlow promised me. So, or at least, I want to be able to bike to the island. So that's really my big thing. Last on the island. So I think this is since your last visit. I got a tour of the island from Professor Pricklethorne. I hope I've got his name right. Professor Pricklethorne, who's an arborist, and he was for 25 years. He was, I don't know,
Like the island arborist or something?
the island parks guy. Like he was
Wow.
running the show over there, and it's a big deal. But he gave me this tour, so we took a little water taxi, a tour of the island. What struck me from this tour is the part of the island that is almost like you almost can't visit it anymore because of the cormorants. So I don't know who's on the cormorant case here, but I'm told they were the Leslie Spit. They were in Tommy Thompson Park, like they were there, and all was fine. Then they found they liked a part of this island, and they're there in many numbers.
The people out.
And they're guano. Do you know that's a polite way of saying shit? Okay, the guano, it's rancid, so it does two things. One is it's destroying the trees. Like it's like acidic, so the trees are all barren. Like they look like they've been destroyed. It's terrible for the trees, but also stinky, like super sweet, stinky, the worst smell. Like some people on this boat we were going through simply like could barely handle it. So I wonder if we need to figure out what the hell we do with the cormorants.
Yeah, we don't put a bounty on the cormorants.
But there was
a mass cull.
There was apparently they had a plan to just make them like uncomfortable, so they move, right? Because you can't go killing these cormorants. Heaven forbid. But apparently a bald eagle showed up, and they had to abandon the plans to make these cormorants uncomfortable
in deference to the bald eagle,
because it was an endangered species that showed up. So I'm going to put it on the radar. I don't know. Now we're heading into the winter here.
If anybody has a sound that bald eagles love and cormorants hate, this is your moment.
That's what we're looking for. That sound might be Snow's Informer. Like if we blast Snow's Informer. I think the bald eagles are okay with it, and possibly the cormorants don't like it. They'll go back to the Leslie Spit there, where they seem to be okay over there. Ed Keenan, you hit it out of the park again. That doesn't mean you have to wield the bat for the photo. I just wanted to bring it back to baseball. But is there anything that you were like driving here saying, I need to mention this or say this, and then Mike didn't prompt me for it?
No,
we never talked before
I knew
things.
we were going to talk about speed cameras. Eglinton, we got onto it. I was thinking about the Leafs and the Blue Jays on the way in here, and we touched on those. So I think we're done. I think we're good. We got our Pearl Gem conversation in.
Are you going to attend any Blue Jays playoff games at the Dome?
It's unlikely, but possible.
And that everything's kind of unlikely, but not everything, but many things.
No, but I mean, if I haven't made any preparations to try and purchase tickets, but I do have some friends who are season ticket holders. They'll probably be using their tickets, but if the opportunity to buy some at a price that is reasonable comes my way, I will definitely take it up. But I think I'm a little late in the game to try and make plans for it. So,
and that Brings us to the end of our 1,773rd show. Go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. Thank you, Great Lakes Brewery. Thank you, Palma Pasta. I do have a lasagna for you, Ed Keenan.
Woo-hoo!
Nick Iones, thank you. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Blue Sky Agency and Ridley Funeral Home. Here's a measuring tape for you. See you all tomorrow for FOTM Cast with the VP and Cam Gordon.